This person spoke with conviction, like someone who had rehearsed, like someone who had already made their decision before the conversation even began. It's better this way. And for some reason, this person believed that repeating this would bring relief. That saying it again would erase what had come before, but it didn't bring relief. It didn't erase. Because the gaze of someone repeating this phrase no longer holds anything. It carries no truth anymore, only defense. The sparkle that once existed there, that sparkle that revealed surrender, desire, connection, is no longer present. It faded away slowly, vanished without warning, and by the time it was noticed, it was already a different gaze, a distant gaze. Present in body, but absent in spirit. This person tried to accept it, tried to understand, tried not to feel, but the body felt. The absence was palpable. The change was silent, but it screamed in every gesture. This person realized when everything cooled down, noticed when the touch changed, when the timing of presence ceased to feel light and began to weigh heavy. The phrase lingered. It's better this way. But each time this person heard it, it became clearer that it was just a way to avoid what hurt. This person didn't want to leave. They just didn't know how to stay anymore. And now, those who remained were left with the echo, left with the words that try to explain what the gaze had already revealed. Left with a memory that still pulses. Even when all that's left is silence, this person understands, because they've noticed when a gaze breaks before the end. And they've also realized that when that happens, there's no going back. Does this person feel this way now? Tell me in the comments. If this touched on a part that was silent, comment, I needed to hear this. This person spoke naturally, like someone simply repeating something they had rehearsed without hesitation, without trembling, without pause. It's better this way. The phrase slipped out easily, but it didn't carry truth. It carried relief, a forced, urgent relief, as if it were necessary to rid oneself of the scene, the pain, the presence of the other. But the body of the person saying this does not lie. The gaze even less so. That person realized in the next moment that there was an emptiness running through everything, a kind of silence that even the best justification could not fill, an early absence, an end that had already happened before the formal farewell. That person tried to accept it, tried to rationalize, tried to wear maturity like one wears armor, but the chest ached. It ached without drama, it ached deep down, it ached where no one could see, and no matter how much that person repeated the phrase, nothing in it provided peace, just a bitter insistence, like someone trying to convince themselves of something they still don't believe. And that is the point that no one usually says out loud. Oftentimes, those who decide to leave didn't do it because they wanted to. They did it because they didn't know how to stay. That person felt this, even if they didn't have the courage to name it. The "it's better this way" became a sort of mantra, fragile, almost childish, as if by repeating it enough the pain would cease to exist. But it didn't, not by a long shot, because something inside still pulsed, something still vibrated, even if suffocated, and the melancholy began to trickle down the corners of their gaze. That person noticed everything, even unwillingly, noticed that the spark had faded, that the time spent together no longer had light, that silence had become more frequent than any conversation, but they didn't know what to do with this awareness, because there was no villain, there was no fight, there was no visible guilt, just distance. Distance that began in gestures, in delays, in the lack of desire. Then it came to the gaze. And when the gaze dimmed, that person knew something was lost. Even though everything seemed normal on the outside, inside it was already missing. Truth was missing. Presence was missing. Soul was missing. That person tried to ignore it, tried to tell themselves it was just a phase, but the awareness insisted, the feeling that they were no longer seen with the same enchantment, with the same care, with the same heart. And when that happens, and when a person realizes they are no longer a priority in someone else's eyes, something breaks, something separates, something bids farewell in silence. And sometimes that person only realizes this after it's over, or worse, realizes it while still there, trying to pretend they don't see, trying to hold on to something that's already slipping away, trying to force normalcy where only disconnection exists. That person stayed for a while, even after everything was already dying, because not everyone who stays does so out of hope. Sometimes it's out of fear, fear of facing the emptiness, fear of admitting it's over, fear of losing the little that was left. But the gaze no longer lied. It was dull, cold, distant, and even without words that person understood. There was no turning back. What existed before now only lived in memory, no longer in the present. That person noticed the details, always notices. The response time, the tone of voice, the shortened touch, the lack of questions, the body growing distant. They noticed when good morning became a formality, when I love you turned into an obligation, when affection became a soulless routine. And that hurts more than a fight, more than a declared end, because it's the kind of farewell that isn't announced. It happens gradually, almost imperceptibly, but when it's noticed, it's already gone. That person heard again, "It's better this way." This time it sounded like a closing, like a full stop, like an elegant resignation. But those who look into the eyes see the mess hidden behind the phrase, see the weariness, see the internal struggle between what's felt and what's pretended, see the spark that faded, see the absence, see the goodbye that was said with words, but had already been lived in silence long before. That person held on to everything, to the longing, to the remnants, to the unasked questions, to the unspoken answers. They carried the weight of no longer having a place for affection, with the memory of a gaze that will never return, with a quiet hope that still insists, even when it shouldn't anymore, even when it knows it's not going to happen. And no one teaches this, how to stop waiting for something that the heart still wants, even if the other person has already gone, even if the spark has faded, even if the phrase, "It's better this way," has been repeated 1,000 times. This person realizes that it still hurts, even after so much time. If anyone still feels this way, comment here. I needed to hear this. If this story has crossed someone's soul and lingered there unanswered, comment, "This happened to me too." This person tried to move on, tried to fill the absence with distractions, tried to turn grief into routine. But absence has a unique shape. It doesn't hide. It inhabits everything. This person started to notice the absence in the mirror, in the bedroom, in the music, in other people's voices, in the long days, in the lack of conversation. They realized that everything goes on, but nothing is the same. And the awareness of this doesn't come all at once. It gradually fills the chest from within, with slowness, with patience. Until one day this person realizes that the gaze that lost its sparkle also took away a part of themselves, and didn't give a warning, and didn't apologize. It just left. This person still feels, not always, but on certain days, in certain sense, in certain photos that weren't deleted, in certain memories that come back out of nowhere. And it's in those moments that everything reappears, as if time hadn't passed, as if there was still something unresolved, something unsaid, something that deserved to have been lived, but was interrupted. This person knows, because they still carry this in their body, in their skin, in their energy, in their gaze, and no one sees, no one understands, but those who feel it feel. If this made sense so far, write yes in the comments. If any part of this message spoke for you, write, "That's me." This person doesn't blame anyone, just laments for what could have been, for what didn't have time, for what got lost along the way. And no matter how hard I try to bury it, there are moments when longing resurrects everything. There are moments when the heart still goes back to where it knows it shouldn't stay. This person has already understood that some things don't come back, but the body still insists on waiting. And that's what hurts the most. Waiting for what doesn't return, desiring what has already been, trying to breathe life into something that has already died in the other. This person doesn't talk about it with anyone, because they know that few would understand, because they know it would seem like an exaggeration, but the pain isn't exaggerated. It's just invisible and deeply real. And that's why this person walks in silence, with a heart full of words that never came out, and with a gaze that since then has also lost a bit of its shine. This person has learned to smile with an empty heart, to respond "I'm fine" when they're not, to carry on through the days as if the world has moved on. But inside, there are still scattered pieces. It's not drama, it's memory. It's the memory of a time when the other's gaze still saw, still recognized, still felt like home. This person doesn't want back who they were. They want back who they used to be. They want back the gaze that cared, the touch that soothed, the feeling of being important to someone who didn't need to say it because they showed it. And no matter how much time passes, there are absences that become permanent, not in a physical sense, but in the way they shape the soul. This person has changed since that day, since that phrase, since that gaze without shine. They have changed the way they give themselves. They have changed the limits of trust. They have even changed the way they love. Because after someone leaves with their eyes before they step out with their feet, this person understands that the body can remain, but presence is something else. And no one teaches this. No one prepares. No one holds on. This person started to perceive everything with more intensity after that, to notice when someone speaks without feeling, to notice when affection is acted out, to notice when distance begins in the gaze. The world has never been the same again. Relationships have lost their innocence. Commitment has started to come with a filter. And it's not out of malice, it's for protection. This person has grown tired of being the only link holding things together. They're tired of being the one who remains whole while the other fades away. They're tired of believing in words that don't align with the eyes, because it was the gaze that revealed everything, long before the final words. This person still remembers how it was before, how time passed more slowly when there was reciprocity, how even the silence between two bodies could be a refuge, not just absence, how a simple presence could heal an entire day. And maybe that's what they miss the most. The simplicity of feeling seen. This person no longer gives themselves in the same way. They no longer believe with the same faith. They no longer smile with the same confidence. Something has closed off. Something has dimmed. And it wasn't by choice. It was the accumulation of small pains that were never allowed to hurt. There are days when this person tries to reclaim the sparkle. They look in the mirror. They force themselves to believe that it's possible to love again, to trust again, to make space. But the memories always return. The scenes always come back. That gaze always returns. That gaze that has stopped seeing. And it leaves a mark. It sticks. It transforms. This person wants to move forward, not in a hurry, but with dignity. They want to stop carrying ghosts that won't come back. They want to stop waiting for a gaze that no longer recognizes the way back. This person understands that you can't force anyone to stay, but they also understand that there's a difference between leaving with respect and walking away with the other still inside, because that's what happened. The other left. But they left this person filled with questions, filled with loose ends, filled with orphaned feelings, and no one should have to deal with this kind of abandonment. The abandonment without warning, without a name, without explanation. This person goes on, but they don't forget, not out of weakness, but because they have truly lived. This person loves deeply, loves with roots, loves with commitment. And when they love like this, grieving is slower. Letting go takes time. The body takes a while to accept what the mind has already understood. And that gets exhausting, because every day is a battle between it's already over and I still feel it. Has anyone gone through this? Share your story in the comments. If this message resonates with something that has never been said, comment, "That person is me." If it hurts somewhere that no one can see, drop a heart down below. This person has learned to notice everything now, with a sensitivity that can be overwhelming. That weighs heavily, that won't turn off. They notice when they are being silently forgotten. They notice when someone starts to leave without saying anything. They notice when affection is no longer present in the gaze. And when this awareness hits, it's almost impossible to pretend they didn't see it, because after the sparkle fades from the gaze, this person feels their foundation crumble too. This person keeps going. Not in the same way, but they keep going. Now they are more alert, more selective, more cautious with what they give, with what they hold on to, with what they still fight for, because after feeling a gaze die, it becomes impossible not to see the signs. This person feels everything, even when they don't speak, even when they mask it, even when they smile to avoid worrying anyone. It's as if they carry an invisible radar in their chest that picks up on absence even before it becomes real. This person no longer convinces themselves with words. They want truth. They want presence. They want a sparkle in the gaze. They want to feel seen, without having to shout, without having to beg. And more than anything, this person just wants to be able to rest in something that won't leave before it's time. But they know it doesn't always work out that way, because love sometimes dies in silence, in the absence of care, in the loss of the gaze. And those who feel this gap, or those who have lived this, know that the body may keep going, but the soul never returns in the same way. If this made sense to you, leave a like down below so that more people can realize they are not alone. Comment, does this person still live inside you? Or did they leave with someone? Write in the comments, this person is me. Or if you prefer, say it in your own words. We can hear each other here. If this really touched you, share this video with someone who needs to hear this right now. There are people living in the same silence, without words to name what they feel. And if you want to keep receiving messages like this, subscribe to the channel now and turn on the notification bell, because this conversation doesn't end here. There's more coming up, a lot more.